right, so, we like to go deep, and today we're talking ancient China.
Okay, bring it on.
Yeah, I'm excited about this one. You sent over the Huangdi Neijing.
The Yellow Emperor's Inner Canon.
Yes. Also known as the Yellow Emperor's Inner Canon.
Uh-huh.
And honestly, when I saw that it might hold secrets to, living to 100 and still being strong,
Right.
I was like, sign me up. Let's dive in.
I know, it's a really popular text, and for good reason, I think.
Yeah.
So it's often considered like the foundation of traditional Chinese medicine,
Oh, wow.
and it's thought to have been compiled
Yeah.
sometime around like the 3rd century BCE,
Okay.
which, is a long time ago.
That's a while back.
But what's really cool about it, I think, is the format.
Okay.
It's actually written as a dialogue between the Yellow Emperor and his ministers.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So it's almost like you're eavesdropping on this
Hmm.
ancient masterclass about health and longevity.
I like that. Okay.
Yeah.
So they weren't just theorizing about stuff.
Yeah.
They were actually giving practical advice.
It gets very specific.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So for this deep dive, we're going to be focusing on the first chapter of the Suan section,
Okay.
which is called Zhonggu Tianzhen Lun,
Yeah, classic.
which translates to On the Universal Truth of Ancient Times.
I love that title.
Right.
It's very grand.
It's big.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because it actually directly compares ancient and modern lifestyles
Yes.
to try to understand, why people back then were said to have reached 100 while remaining active and strong.
It's a really fascinating comparison.
Yeah.
And they lay it out really clearly in the text.
Okay.
They suggest that ancient people basically lived in harmony with nature's rhythms.
Okay.
And this impacted everything from their diet to their daily routines. So
Interesting.
you can imagine like a life attuned to the seasons,
Yeah.
a diet based on whole foods, regular physical activity,
Yeah.
and a cultivated sense of mental peace.
Okay.
The Huangdi Neijing claims that this way of life basically led to a natural vitality that extended well into old age.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, when you put it like that, it sounds pretty idyllic.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are drawn to that vision.
Yeah.
But it is a stark contrast to like our modern lives,
It's
We're
true.
always rushing,
Always on the go.
juggling stress.
Yeah.
And often, kind of neglecting our well-being with like processed foods and sedentary habits.
I'm guilty of all of that for sure.
I think we all are to some extent, right?
Yeah.
It's the world we live in.
I have to admit, reading that passage about how modern people treat alcohol as a beverage and live recklessly
Oh, yeah.
with a bit of a wake-up call.
That one's a little harsh.
Yeah.
But I get it. You know what they're
Yeah.
saying. It's really about this underlying emphasis on balance and moderation.
Okay.
Now, whether everyone back then truly lived to 100
Right.
is debatable.
Yeah.
There's, no way to really know for sure. But the Huangdi Neijing is using this idea to really emphasize the potential of aligning with nature's principles for health and longevity.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's like a thought experiment almost.
It is, yeah.
So how do we actually tap into that ancient wisdom for ourselves?
That's $1 million question, right?
Yeah.
Well, the Huangdi Neijing lays out 4 pillars for achieving longevity.
4 pillars.
Okay.
I'm ready. All right. So the first one is natural harmony.
Natural harmony. Okay.
So this pillar is all about aligning your lifestyle with the seasons.
Okay.
The text gives examples like favoring warming foods in winter and cooling foods in summer,
Mm-hmm.
which resonates with the principles of ancient Chinese medicine.
Yeah, for sure.
It's about working with, not against,
Right.
the natural rhythms of the world around us.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense in theory, but wouldn't ancient people have been at the mercy of the elements way more than we are today?
Yeah. I mean, we can control our environments with heating and cooling, and we have access to all kinds of foods year-round.
Right. We have a lot more options.
So does adapting to the seasons still hold the same weight in the modern world?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it's something that people debate a lot.
Yeah.
While we do have more control over our immediate environment, our bodies still respond to those natural shifts in light and temperature.
That's true.
So maybe this pillar is less about strict adherence to specific foods and more about understanding how our energy and our needs change throughout the year.
Okay.
For example, we might naturally need more rest in winter
Yeah.
and we might feel more energetic in summer,
Right.
just based on how our bodies are responding to the environment.
So it's more about observing those internal shifts and then adjusting our lifestyles accordingly.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Okay, cool. So pillar number 2 is balanced diet.
Another classic.
Right, and that's something we hear all the time.
Right, it's everywhere.
So what makes the Huangdi Naijing's take on it unique?
Well, they go beyond just recommending specific foods.
Okay.
They really dig into the why behind choosing certain foods,
Interesting.
emphasizing their energetic properties
Oh, wow.
and how they interact with our bodies.
Okay.
And of course, they stress the importance of whole foods, minimizing processed foods, and moderation in all things,
All things. Okay.
including alcohol.
Got it.
Yeah. So it's really a more holistic understanding of food.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So it sounds like they were really focused on, like, food as medicine, that whole concept.
Yeah, very much so.
And speaking of holistic, the third pillar is moderate exercise.
Yeah, that one sounds pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
But, they're careful to emphasize balance here, too.
Okay.
It's not about pushing yourself to the limit or anything like that. It's more about finding activities that help you to, like, cultivate and maintain your vitality.
Okay.
So think like walking, gentle stretching practices like Tai Chi, things that promote circulation and flexibility.
Okay. Without depleting your energy.
Right. It's like finding that sweet spot between exertion and rejuvenation.
Exactly.
So that brings us to the fourth pillar, which I think is especially relevant, in our like crazy busy world.
For sure.
Peaceful mind.
Absolutely. The Huangdi Naijing puts a lot of emphasis on cultivating mental and emotional equilibrium.
I mean, who doesn't need that?
Right.
Right.
It even states that a peaceful mind prevents illness.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Pretty bold statement.
And it suggests practices like meditation and breath work to help cultivate what it calls genuine qi.
Ooh, that sounds interesting.
Right.
Genuine qi.
Yeah, did that phrase jump out at you too?
It did. It sounds a lot like the concept of like qi or qi
Yeah.
in traditional Chinese medicine.
Yeah. Is that what they're referring to here?
Exactly. So in traditional Chinese medicine, qi is understood as this vital energy that flows through all living things.
Right. Okay.
But the Huangdi Naijing kind of takes it a step further,
Okay.
suggesting that genuine qi is like the purest form of this energy.
And that it's cultivated through living in alignment with these four pillars.
So it's not just about avoiding stress. It's about cultivating a deeper sense of like inner peace and harmony that strengthens our overall well-being.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it.
Okay.
The text even connects genuine qi to our emotional state,
Oh, wow.
suggesting that negative emotions like anger or fear can actually like deplete this vital energy
Yeah, that makes sense.
and leave us more susceptible to illness.
So it really highlights that whole like mind-body connection.
Absolutely, it's all connected.
Okay, so this text is from the 3rd century BCE, like we talked about.
Right, way back.
What does modern science have to say about all of this?
That's a good question, and I think it's important to always look at these things with a critical lens.
Yeah.
So while modern science doesn't use terms like genuine qi,
Of course.
there's growing evidence to support the Huangdi Naijing's claims about the mind-body connection.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're learning more and more about how stress, negative emotions, even our thoughts, can impact our physical health.
It's like all that stuff our parents told us, turns out they were right.
Right. It's funny how that works out.
So it sounds like this ancient wisdom is actually being validated by modern research in some pretty incredible ways.
I think so. And what's even more interesting is that modern interpretations of the Huangdi Naijing are really starting to bridge the gap between these seemingly disparate worlds.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about that.
So, for example, some scholars suggest that genuine Kuan can be understood as like a holistic representation of our overall well-being, encompassing our physical, mental, and emotional states.
So it's not just about living to 100, it's about thriving at any age.
Exactly.
And it seems like the Huangdi Naijing is full of this timeless wisdom that we can apply to our lives today.
I think so, for sure.
But I imagine applying these ancient concepts to the modern world isn't always easy.
Yeah, you're right. While the core principles are timeless, the specific recommendations in the text might require some adaptation for our modern lifestyles.
Okay, what do you mean?
Well, for example, the Huangdi Naijing advocates for aligning with the seasons, like we talked about.
Yeah.
But we have access to a much wider variety of foods year-round than ancient people did.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's not always practical or even possible to eat exactly according to the seasons.
So it sounds like it's more about understanding the principles and then adapting them to our individual circumstances.
Yeah, exactly. It's about finding what works for you.
Okay.
You might not be able to completely overhaul your diet or lifestyle overnight,
Right.
but even incorporating small changes can make a difference.
Like what Can you give us some examples of how we could start applying these 4 pillars to our lives?
Sure. So for natural harmony, you could start by simply becoming more aware of the changing seasons and how they impact your energy levels and food cravings.
Okay, so maybe like swap out those heavy winter skews for lighter meals as the weather warms up.
Exactly. And for balanced diet, you could focus on adding more whole, unprocessed foods to your plate
Okay.
while reducing processed foods, sugary drinks, and excessive alcohol.
Small changes add up. Oh, like
Ugh.
that. So what about moderate exercise,
Yeah, that one can be tricky.
especially with a busy schedule?
Yeah, but I think the key here is finding activities that you genuinely enjoy. You know,
Right.
it could be walking, it could be dancing, swimming, gardening, anything that gets you moving and that feels sustainable.
Right.
And remember, the Huangdi Naijing emphasizes consistency over intensity.
I like that. It takes the pressure off.
Yeah.
But what about peaceful mind?
That's a big one.
Yeah, I have to admit, like, meditation isn't really my thing.
That's okay, not for everybody.
Are there other ways to cultivate that inner peace?
Absolutely, there are tons of ways.
Okay.
It could be spending time in nature,
Okay.
listening to calming music,
Mm.
journaling,
Yeah.
engaging in creative pursuits. I think the goal is just to find practices that help you de-stress and connect with a sense of stillness.
Okay, so it sounds like there's a lot of room for personal exploration there and finding what resonates with each individual.
Yeah, for sure. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
You know, it's striking how much of this ancient wisdom really aligns with what we're learning in modern health and wellness.
It's true. It's pretty amazing.
It really speaks to the enduring power of these principles, I think.
Yeah, it's a testament to the insightful observations of those who came before us,
Mhm.
They understood the interconnectedness of our physical, mental, and emotional well-being long before modern science began to unravel those mysteries.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the Huangdi Neijing, what's like the one key takeaway you hope listeners will walk away with?
That's a good question. I think for me, it's the empowering message that we have more agency over our health and longevity than we often realize.
Okay.
By incorporating even just small aspects of these 4 pillars,
Right.
natural harmony, balanced diet, moderate exercise, and peaceful mind,
Yeah.
we can make a profound difference in our well-being.
So it's not about striving for some like unattainable ideal of perfect health,
Right.
but about making conscious choices that nourish our bodies and minds.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance, that sweet spot where we feel energized and resilient and truly alive.
Well said. And who knows, maybe we can all add a few extra years to our lives while we're at it.
Perhaps. But more importantly, I think let's focus on making those years vibrant and meaningful.
Couldn't agree more to a long and healthy life filled with vitality and purpose. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration.